And welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. It is show number 115, and happy to be back on with you. Sorry about the music here. I know so many people love that intro music. We had some technical difficulties, so there was no music today, so I apologize. But it is show 115, and happy to be on. We have an in-studio guest. He is a local school leader from Delaware Valley School District, Dr. Pete Ioppolo. We're going to bring Pete in a minute. He's enthusiastic. He's a paisan from New York like myself, who's moved out here to the country now, and we have a lot of similarities, and I'm looking forward to talking with Pete in a moment. This is Education, Leadership, and Beyond, and a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. And I would like to welcome on to the Education Podcast Network group of ours, Dr. Molly Ness and her podcast, End Book Desserts. End Book Desserts is the brainchild of Dr. Molly Ness, who has had the great fortune of growing up in a literacy-rich community. I'm not going to read her whole intro, but check out her podcast on Education Podcast Network. Again, shout out to Chris Nessie for putting that together. And thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Rocketbook. This is the Andrew Marotta Rocketbook. If you've watched before, you know it's a smart notebook. This is the Andrew Marotta version. And I'm also going to show Pete, this is how I kind of do my schedule, right? So how do you use Rocketbook? How does it work? It's a reusable notebook, and you can put your schedule, you can put your stuff in here, and then you could wipe it down when you're done. But on the bottom of each page, there's some things here that you can mark, and you could send it to your Google Drive. You could send it to email. You can save these documents so you have them. So for us as busy school leaders, we won't lose anything. If you're interested, you could check out the Andrew Marotta one on my website, andrewmarotta.com. There is a 20% discount there, and I'd be happy to get this to you. This is going to Dr. I, so hopefully this will help him organize his days. So let's get started. Those watching, right, principals have to make a lot of quick decisions. And we're just, a week or so after the Super Bowl, and I remember watching the game and thinking about different leadership things that happen, and they happen to us every day, and we have to respond with quick decisions. You can make mistakes when you go too fast, but in thinking about the leadership of principals and my day-to-day workflow, making those quick decisions and processing the information, those are challenges. And I watched that Super Bowl, again, a little over a week ago, and I was thinking about the officials and the decisions they have to make enforcing the rules, right? And then some of those things that happen, it's not 100% clear, right? X happens and it's Y, right? It's very clear. And the whole audience knows, right? A pass interference or something like that. And they know. But then sometimes it's iffy, right? And you can't tell, and people debate. And the same things happens to us as school leaders making those decisions, right? And when the answer is not clear, what do you do? So just a couple of things. Number one, right? Don't make a decision too quick. Slow it down a little bit. I need a little think time. Second, right? Take that think time. Usually the next day will provide some clarity. Some of those answers you don't get the second day. But usually a day later, 24 hours later, you have some more clarity. Third, you ask some people, right? You ask some people, what are their thoughts? Have they had this experience? My good friend John Exantis, superintendent at Valley Central, used to say, check in with the kitchen cabinet. And lastly, I call it retrace your steps. Reread the situation, or go back to where it occurred. If it was in a classroom or something, kind of replay it in your mind, and you get to kind of experience it again. So those are just some decisions and some things you could do when you have to make those decisions. And the answer is not clear, right? Take some think time on it, replay it, ask some people their opinions, and usually that next day you can get some clarity. So just some tips to get us started in terms of making those hard decisions. But I talk too much. I want to bring in our guest here. Dr. I, come on in and welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Good to
Thanks
have you
me.
on.
Appreciate it.
Let's get you some volume here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Get you all set. So this is Dr. Ioppolo, everyone.
Hello.
Pete, you just heard me talking about making quick decisions, right? And it happens to us 10, 15 times a day. What are some things that you do in terms of when people are coming at you and they want a quick response? What are some things that you do?
I think for sure you gave good recommendations. Follow a lot of them actually closely. For the first thing I do is I try to gauge the situation to see if it is a safety concern for the child. Those are generally decisions that cause you to move more quickly. But if it's not a situation where someone is going to be injured or potentially hurt, then you do take that step back when you can. And I do appreciate all the support of my teammates. So I'll go and make some questions available to see. It also helps to understand the policies, and you want to stay within the parameters of those. But reflection afterwards to see what could have been done differently. Those are some of the steps.
Yeah, and when that situation happens again, you remember that, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I remember I left that out.
And just when you thought you knew every situation, a new situation comes about.
Okay. Well, Pete, give us a quick introduction. The program is a national program, and not everyone, people here locally know you. And scoot a little bit. I don't want you to feel like you're falling off the thing here. But give a quick introduction of yourself and a little bit about your background.
My name's Peter Ioppolo. I grew up in Long Island, New York.
Forget about it.
In a town called West Babylon. And I went, my undergraduate studies were at York College of Pennsylvania. I did some marketing there. Decided I wanted to get into education thereafter. And after going back to Long Island and working in my parents' wholesale food company for about a year and a half, I had completed my studies to become a business education teacher. I did that at Nazareth School District in Pennsylvania for my first 4 years. I was fortunate to get some administrative certification through Dowling College, East Stroudsburg University. And then I took on the role of an acting assistant principal for Nazareth.
And let me jump in. When you were teaching, were you thinking like, hey, I want to expand on what I'm doing. I could take that next level. Was that something that you were thinking at that time?
Yeah, definitely. How you can help to influence more people. I've been very blessed in my life with great parents. So, being able to be helped by them just gives you that desire to want to help other people. Very fortunately, or for whatever reason in my life, I generally gravitate to the top of the clock. And I felt that becoming a principal would be a great opportunity to have a little bit greater influence.
Yeah. And did, coming from Long Island, your time in York, did that help you kind of find this area? Like, how did you wind up in the Milford, Wallenpaupack area?
Yeah. Ultimately, going out to York was an eye-opener for me because it's a little bit different, a little more rural, obviously, than Long Island. But what I do think, though, was helpful in slowing my pace of life down. I know being on the island is a little bit of a rat race at times. So having the experience at York got me, again, slowed down, and I became familiar with this area as my current wife, Tina, was a resident in this area. So she was out at York, and we were together.
Okay.
And I decided to make the move. To Pennsylvania. So it's been about almost 27, 28 years. Wow. And I love it.
Yeah. Delaware Valley. And Dr. I is actually my daughter's program. She might be watching, program principal. And hopefully she's watching live. And if you are watching live, I see there's a number of viewers. Please leave us a comment or question. My number one fan is watching. Hi, Mom. This is Claire's principal here.
Nice to meet you.
So we'll be on our best behavior. So. Pete, you spent a lot of time at the high school as an assistant principal, and then were able to become the middle school principal. What were some adjustments that you made in those different roles? You're dealing with different ages, and you're in a different role.
Sure.
What were some things that you adjusted to?
I guess probably the biggest thing is the student maturity level and just some of the dialogue and some of the conversations that you would be accustomed to having with some of the older children were clearly different when you got to the younger ages.
Yeah.
What I find is I enjoy the younger ages because they are still willing to laugh at some of my foolishness. Whereas I think today's biggest challenge for me would have been dealing with some of the technology that's been introduced into the world since moving to the middle school. We don't generally tend to have that many disruptions due to the technology. And I think more so at the older ages, that would probably present the greatest challenge.
Yeah. And I find your kids are a little bit older than mine. Is it me, Pete, as my kids in middle school now, but the stuff they're being exposed to is younger and younger?
Yes. Both on the academic level, but clearly also on the social level.
Yeah. Like dating and boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. Like,
yeah, even more just, you don't have to have that physical contact to be close to someone on the technology.
Yeah.
So as parents, you don't get to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of an alarming situation there, but
and you have during the day, the kid's phone has to be locked up, right?
In our building, phones are to be off and away. Yes.
So how much battle do you have with parents? I need to get in touch with my kid, and I'm telling my kid to keep their phone because I need to get in touch with them. Do you get that?
In the rarest occasion, I think most of the people in the community are very supportive of what we're trying to do. In the rare instance, just have to remind someone that I don't have permission to give people permission to break the rules.
Yeah.
They don't either. We make our office available. If a kid needs to use the phone, even their own personal cell phone, all they have to do is ask.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, the technology. Pete's got some people here. Who's this Rainey? Who's Rainey Ioppolo?
Rainey is my sister Lorraine down in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh.
So Lorraine, thanks for chiming in here and getting on. It's nice to see. Love you and I miss you.
Cool. Very cool. That's the power of social media.
That's it.
People look at middle school and like, oh my God, like middle school is like, there's all these books and crazy, things like. Give us some words that, what is a typical day? Give us some, one or two words to describe it. Like if I said, Pete, give me one or two words.
Energetic, because that's what the students bring, a lot of energy. Sometimes some disorganization in a lot of the children. So you're always working to try to make sure that they're organized and know where they're supposed to be headed. But fun. The kids are fun, very impressionable. Very genuine, and in our community, we're very blessed. I think between our elementary schools and also the homes in the community, our middle school is receiving outstanding children. So I am the one that's blessed to go to work.
Yeah. And how much growing up advice do you give them? Like I look at the kids now, I'm like, did I not tie my shoes when I was that age? Like, do the kids not tie their shoes anymore? Like, I'm not tying shoes at my school at the high school level. But like the amount of kids, I just can't, like how much of that do you like talk to them about?
Interestingly, in the day, we have a bell system. So when the bell goes off, we're like Pavlovian dogs. We go to the hallways. We're monitoring, supervising. It's funny because there are kids that walk with shoes that are untied. And I remind them of the safety concerns. I don't want to see them being tripped or tripping another student. I have seen someone fall into a table in the cafeteria. Yeah. So from that perspective, you just want to keep everybody safe. And it doesn't happen too often, but it's fun, just keep them in line, get them back in check.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have 3 years with them, and you got a lot of fans here, Pete. You got people jumping on from all over. Your paisans from Long Island.
I appreciate it.
This is great.
It's a good group.
And Pete, how about, again, this community, you've been a long time, Delaware Valley. The safety of the kids, you mentioned that right away. And there's unfortunately been so many instances of violence in the country, right? Like you as the school leader, how do you make sure that the kids are not petrified, but they also know about lockdowns and things like that? Do you have those conversations with the kids?
Well, we have practice drills each month for sure. You don't want to ever make too big of a situation bigger than it is. So again, you have to always, scan the situation and how you approach it with it, dealing with the kids. If it's an emergency and it's a genuine emergency, you're going to move them along. Yeah. But you try not to make too much paranoia at all. For the most part, it's an organization. People have had the practice, and again, I have a great team. Yeah. So you just deploy your resources and
you have a police officer in your building. Tell me about your relationship and your direction with him. Like, are there things that you need to specifically, hey, we heard this, or do you have debriefings with the gentleman every day?
Yeah, Chief Mowgli, we have the opportunity to speak on a regular basis. He's an outstanding man and an officer, and he clearly is interested in protecting the safety and welfare of the children. And so we talk often. And Mark is very influential in sharing new trainings that he is exposed to. He helps our staff become prepared in case there's armed intruders. He will show us differing paraphernalia and differing ills that children are being exposed to, because that's happening at paces faster than I can keep up with. Yeah. So when Mark shows you something that a kid might be vaping from or holding, paraphernalia, you're paying attention. I'm very fortunate at the middle school level. I would never be naive to think that kids aren't breaking rules and doing foolish things. But historically, our kids have done a really nice job upholding policy and not getting involved in those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the culture you're creating. And one of the things, I got some inside information, you're not afraid to act silly, Pete. No. You're not afraid to sing or dance. No. Tell me about that side of yourself, because you got to be the leader, right? You got the great suit on, your chest back, you want to show strength, but you're also not afraid to act silly and laugh with the kids. Tell me about that yourself.
Sure. I think with age comes wisdom, and I've always been a pretty confident person. I do care what people think and say, but I don't generally care too much. I know there's a boundary of what's appropriate and what's not, so just balancing and staying on the appropriate side. But the key to this profession is connectivity. And in order to connect with the children, it's important, I think, that they do see those sides. That is not someone who's always regimented, always to the rules. And I think that's where some of the experience of being the principal, but as well as having the longevity in the career at this point and the age, is slowing me down. And, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Yeah. So to say.
I mean, it's not
goofy comes easy.
Well, it's like,
goofy comes easy.
Dad, you gotta believe what Mr. Ioppolo did. What did he do today? Yeah. He was singing.
Oh, I don't mind.
He took the mic and was singing.
I only feel badly for the people that are hearing it and looking at me.
That is great that you can do that, Pete. And you're able to kind of wear your emotions there and have some fun with the kids. Especially at that age, right? Because they're kids, right?
Keep it real.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
Pete, Delaware Valley's got a great reputation. Tell me about some of the things that you're proud of as principal of the middle school, not only for the school, but you yourself. You've been at the homes. Like, what are some celebrations that you want to share?
Every day is a celebration, honestly. I'm very privileged to be there. But over the course of time, one of the biggest accomplishments, or the largest accomplishment, was back in 2010. The Delaware Valley Middle School won the National Blue Ribbon of School Excellence. That's something that our team is very proud of, and our district, because, again, it wasn't just a one location success story. These are things that built within homes and in the community and within our elementary schools. And then, I just had the right players and the right students and the right opportunity, and we were able to get things done to where we were recognized on that national level.
What are some of the things at Blue Ribbon? Like, you have to have X. Like, what are some of the categories that?
Yeah, we definitely needed to have a really solid student academic portfolio. I know the advent of having world languages helped us. As far as we were a school, prior to winning, we were successful with the academics, so other schools would come to kind of take a look at our schools. So your community outreach was something that was considered. Yeah. The application process was a very large endeavor. And what I did is, immediately after the nomination, I reached out to a school in California and one in Florida. And I reached out to their principals to congratulate them on their success, and then to ask them to send me everything that they did so that I could help with the application process.
Wow.
And then I brought the team in and brought each of the components to the departments and asked them to really put in their words the answers. And we packaged it together and got lucky.
Yeah. Well, I don't think luck had anything to do with it. A lot of hard work, right? They say about
hard work.
People that work the hardest are the luckiest, I mean, that's great. And the banner's in the school, and it's 10 years later. What would you say 10 years later? Has the school grown? What are some things that you've added to those great things that got you that award?
All right. So in the past couple of years, we brought on a different level of our science program so that students in 7th and 8th would have opportunity to take an honors level course as well as the on-level course.
We did the project this year. We got the science project.
One of the things that I think I'm pleased about is we brought in the National Junior Honor Society. And that was actually a couple of parents they moved into the district. They had exceptional children, and they had said, Pete, do you have this in our schools? And we didn't. And I had the opportunity to see my own children's program down in Wallenpaupack, and just felt that the timing was right. Yeah. And working with the other middle school and a couple of really good advisors, we were able to bring that on. This was the second year of that program. So really pleased about that. And then our kids do a lot of community programs, whether it be food drives, helping out with some of the local agencies, making ribbons, going to the convalescent home, inviting our veterans in. That stuff I get emotional about, and I don't want to get emotional on your show.
The breakfast is
that's a fun time.
Yeah, my father-in-law's been in there.
Yeah, Grandparents' Day is the highlight of the year for me, and every person on the planet should get the privilege of seeing 200 grandparents connect with their grandchildren. It's exceptional.
Yeah, and it's been great as a parent here. I didn't realize the National Junior Honor Society was only in second year, but being on the receiving end of that, it was a great ceremony and a great honor for our daughter, and it's been great. Pete, another thing for you personally, you got your doctorate, Dr. I, and it sounds good. Tell me about that journey, because that's a big commitment.
Yeah, that was an interesting journey. I had I started out at Marywood pursuing it. I had Angelina was my youngest. She's my oldest, obviously now. She was about 3 years old the first night of class. And when she said that from our porch, Dad, you think they will let you out early so you can come home and play? I recognized that the next couple of years, it probably wasn't going to happen. So I walked away from it, then got back into it. I had just assumed the role of principal of the building. I was the wellness chairperson for the school district. I was the president of the local Pike United Way. And I was going for this again. And then unfortunately, the one blemish we have in our lives is my wife Tina lost her husband, her father, Jim. So that's about 12 or 13 years ago. So at that point, again, I stepped away from Marywood a second time, swearing to never go back. And then a friend of mine, Vivian Bruno, one of our social workers, about 8 years removed, said, Peter, are you going to ever go back? And I said, no way. And then she uttered the words that crushed me when she said, your father would be very proud of you. And from that night on, I actually drove back to Marywood to get my transcripts. I'm not recognizing I wanted to go back to Marywood, or realizing there I knew a couple of people that took an online program. So I started to do some homework, and I spoke to a woman at Capella University who was very accommodating, very professional, and got me quickly hooked back up in their track. In about 3 years after that, 3.5 years after that, the late nights, the early mornings, the busy weekends, I was able to, with a lot of help, complete the work. I owe a shout out to my librarian, Ms. Shalaskis. She was an exceptional proofreader. She had to take some garbled words and make them intelligible.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's cool. And when did you actually get it? How?
I ended up last June. So it was June of 2018. Wow. It was a great feeling. Yeah. And I'm proud of it because it was one of the last two remaining goals that I had set for myself. So, Micah Sweeney is a teacher in our building, bouncing out, always conversing with people. And he said, Pete, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. And that's always stuck with me. And then my father took my tie one time because I was going to quit. I wasn't going to finish. And he said, lay your tie out and show me where you are on your journey. And I happened to be in the final 10%. And he said, take a look back and take a look forward. Enough's enough. Go finish. So I was able to press ahead. And it's just perseverance. Yeah. For me personally, it's not an intellectual thing. It's just a matter of the heart.
And did you have to do a dissertation?
On this program, I was able to, I have an EDD, not a PhD. Okay. A little bit different for me was I was able to write a pretty extensive paper. My subject matter was mentoring. And then I actually crafted a capstone project that, if interested, our district could adopt for administrators. Yeah. Because very often, as you know, when I did my homework with administrators, it's kind of sink or swim. Yeah. You go from the classroom and then you go into the throes of administration. In my experience at Nazareth and Pleasant Valley and at DV, there was no set mentor. Yeah. So having a lot of wonderful people in my life to help me along, I recognize the value of that, and that's what kind of got me choosing that topic.
Yeah, and you had some mentors in your life.
Yep.
You know, your parents. You shared a little bit about. Mike Lassico is former. So what would you say, Pete, after doing the project and then having people in your life that led you and showed you? What would you say are some of the most important components of being that mentor for that new administrator or that new teacher?
The value of it, for one, is when you're doing the job for a few years, you're not necessarily, you're getting away from some things maybe that you had practiced early on in your career. When you go into the role of a mentor, you're working with someone who is learning all of those things. Mm-hmm. So they're introducing you to their new experiences with technology, the changing society and laws. But then you're also going back to your roots, and you're taking back and remembering the things that made you successful as a person, and that hopefully you're sharing. So the value of the mentoring becomes a two-way proposition, and it's actually three-way because it helps the organization as well. Mm-hmm. But when you're getting that refreshed learning, they're getting that comfort and that support, and it's just a really feel-good opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great topic. And you mentioned slowing down a few times. Moving to Pennsylvania slowed you down. Experiences slowed you down, and I've learned that too in talking with some younger people. My first reaction is, "Well, do it this way." Or, why didn't you do that? And it's like you want to let them kind of figure it out, and maybe in a more gentle way. Maybe try this. Well, and that I'm working on slowing down too. Two true. Italian guys from two different islands. So, sure. But it's true. Yeah, but that's a great topic. And specifically, Pete, your parents, I know, have been a big impact on your life. That real, tell me about that relationship, the things that you've taken into your role as principal, from your parents.
Well, for one, I'm blessed to still have them both alive, and my mother's going to be celebrating her birthday in a few days, so I'm excited for her. But the lessons right from the grassroots of coming up as a young child, we didn't have a lot as a family, so I learned budgeting very, very well from my mom, and watching her literally take the envelopes and where they're going to put the money to make you get through, and the sacrifices that they have made for my sister and I. You see what they were willing to give up to ensure that we had when others did as well. Mm-hmm. They wanted us to. So the work ethic, the respect, punctuality, those are values that I can take from both my mother and my father. Yeah. And I just think, I'm so blessed to still have them. Actually, sometimes my wife gets angered with me because I like to go after work and have a cup of coffee with my mom and dad.
Did they move up this way?
They moved up probably about 18 years ago.
Oh, nice.
So they're next door. And I go home and like to, catch up, see how they're doing. My aunt's there.
They moved up after you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So it's been great for our children. And I just have to be conscientious to make sure I'm paying time to my wife as well.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life.
You're not kidding.
So many people watching live today, and we appreciate. If you have a question for us, please put it on, and we'll try to get to it. Pete, we talked a little off air. You're in great shape. You're a young guy. You have active children. We're busy, right? Tell me some things that you do to sharpen your saw, to keep you fresh, that you do for yourself.
Sure. I like to read a lot. Not so much from books necessarily. I do read some books, but I do peruse often a lot of online material. I call myself more of a skimmer than probably a reader, but I consume a voracious amount of information. So that from a mental perspective, or a brain power perspective, I hope is working. And then I think about longevity of life. I don't ever want to leave, especially with all the opportunities coming down the road. So to try to take a physical approach and do some working out in the morning, trying to balance that diet as best as possible. And what I found is the exercise is a two-way byproduct for the physical piece, but I think even maybe more importantly, Andrew, the mental piece. Yeah. My positivity is off the charts when those endorphins are popping.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And it goes fast, and you got to take care of yourself and recharge. And again, your kids, you're so talented kids go playing at college. His daughter walked on softball and Hofstra's. It's fantastic. Yeah.
We're very blessed with the kids, and people are very, very nice in the words that they share about my children. And that is always very touching to me. They're wonderful kids. They make excellent decisions. And it took a village of people. I laugh, and the number of people involved in my kids' life to make them who they are. When I'm complimenting someone, I don't think they necessarily recognize how important it was to be with my mom and dad and Tina's parents when the map came out and they knew their 50 states by the time they were this, and their multiplication and the math, and to have our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our teachers, our administrators at Paul Pack, our friends. There are so many wonderful families, and we just happen to be fortunate to gravitate to them. And we hope as a family we hold minimally par for the community and what we try to give back. And my children are going to take my wife and I, God willing, on a ride that I can wait for, but I can't wait for because it started already.
Polka, baby. Pete, you're split between two communities, right? Wallenport Park's, 30, 40 minutes from here. Another great community. What do you do on that drive each day? Do you have a routine that you listen to podcasts or things like that? What do you do?
I think about the word reflection, and often some people maybe don't reflect. The one thing about a 40-minute ride each way is it gives you time to reflect, and often those reflection points are about the day's activities, and then I try to close them, compartmentalize that part of the day, so then I get to go home and be dad. But between running, I showed you my yard's 3 acres. That's a lot of mowing. So there's always a constant reflection. And with that age and with that wisdom, I talk, what I want to do is I want to be a better father, a better husband, a better educator, a better person. Yeah. Because as the time goes through that hourglass, I tend to reflect a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look back, right? You want to, and you and I have a lot of same mentalities of that drive to constantly improve and not rest where you're at.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I look up to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I do, man.
Thank you. Pete, was there anything else? Again, you got half of your kids, half of Long Island and Wallenport Park's watching here. But, was there anything else before we get to rapid fire that you wanted to share? Was there something that you wanted me to ask that I didn't?
Probably, you had asked about a couple of quotes. I think back over the last couple of weeks, Neil Peart used to be the drummer for Rush, best in the world. And then Kobe Bryant, one of the best in the world. They both perished in the last couple of weeks. So that thought of mortality, I couldn't help but creep in. But when I think about Kobe and I think about Tiger Woods and I think more importantly about Michael Jordan, people like that and that drive, those are influential people in my life that I think that killer instinct, that always be your best. I think of those individuals whenever I'm in a competition or I'm building and preparing for something, because I think the more you put towards, the more it gets focused, the more it gets accomplished. So those are important people. And one important quote I actually took, probably the most important quote I took as an educator, and came from Dr. Judy Smith, was a professor at East Stroudsburg University. And this was a long time ago. But she said, Pete, when you enter this profession, if you make every decision for the betterment of children, you are never going to be wrong. So I take great pride in following those words religiously. I don't worry about anything other than that component, because in this field, it's going to be very difficult to argue me wrong when I'm demonstrating that the child comes first. I'll tell people often, we don't make Toyotas. So if this is a Toyota factory and today your quote is 11 and you only make 8, I can live with that. Yeah. Kids don't get that second opportunity for lost time. So that's one piece. That quote was always stayed with me.
You had some powerful things. That your daughter telling you, Daddy, will you be home?
People who know me, I'm an emotional person. I can get choked up very quickly, and I'm a passionate person. I'm a truthful person, and I speak from the heart.
And kudos to you. Those are paradigm shifts. Those are paradigm shifts. You talked about going to York, and when I was in North Carolina, I'll never forget, paradigm shift. We pull up to my friend's house, leaves the key in the ignition. And I said, hey man, you left the key in the ignition. He goes, yeah, I know. I said, well, what are you doing? He says, that's where I leave the key. I said, why would you leave your key in the ignition? And again, paradigm shift, his answer was, why not? And I said, in that moment right there, I want to live in a place that you could do it. So don't go steal my car because the key is in
Don't check my car.
don't take it. So
that's funny.
Pete, we are running out of time.
Yeah, whatever I can do.
We got to get to rapid fire. We're going to get back
to
Long Island pace here.
Let's do it.
We're going to upgrade. So,
all right.
But this has been fun.
Thank you.
I know you mentioned about not reading books, more articles and things, but how about the last book you read?
The Santa Claus leadership book I read. Leadership Secrets of Santa Claus. I read it around Christmas time. Very influential book.
Yeah. And while I'll jump in, I'm going to recommend my buddy's book, Evan Robb, The 10-Minute Principle.
Okay.
Your pace and this and your thing, it's about compartmentalizing the day. And that I would recommend that to you. But keep going. Yeah. Last movie you saw.
Don't really go to the movies very much, but I'll give you my favorite movie is The Towering Inferno.
That's old.
It's an old school movie. Irwin Allen. It's got a lot of great cast of characters.
Okay. Tina liked your answer. It must be the car. Favorite place to travel?
Las Vegas, Nevada.
You like that?
Without question.
You like the action?
I either want to die on the top of Caesar's Palace or I want to die in my backyard wiffle ball field.
What's your game?
I actually go out there and do quite a bit of dancing. I go out and listen to the electronic music and go until 5 a.m.
That's cool.
Yeah, I live for that. Live for the drop.
And now they'll have the football out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's something about flying in there too.
Day or night. There's never a dull moment out in Las Vegas, baby.
And I like the old Vegas, right?
Yeah, I've been out there 6 times, and the last time I went out was with my fraternity brothers. In fact, I was out there this time last year with 15 of my fraternity brothers.
Watch out.
And I went out to Old Vegas for the first time, and I'm really looking forward to taking Tina to go out.
Yeah.
But they zip line across the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's 3 tracks. So if God's going to allow me, I envision my 3 children zip lining above Tina and I as we're holding each other in a cold frosty.
God, Vegas, what's happening here? Oh, man. Pete, you talked about a lot of passions. What is something that really motivates you?
My children and the desire to be around, to follow my children and to see the success. That's what motivates me in the area of the health, momentum, physical, mental. Just really, they bring a lot of joy. So
good for you. How about something that gets under your skin, a pet peeve of yours?
Tina would tell you I probably have too many of those. I have about a dozen, honestly. From a school perspective.
Give me the top 3.
Yeah, from a school perspective, I don't like extraneous, unnecessary, loud noises because there's just too much going on.
Yeah.
And I don't like loud chewers, and I don't like snorers.
Wow. Tina fall into that category?
No way.
No way. Yeah, because I could get you probably the sleep, right? It's going to affect your sleep.
It's weird. I have a little bit of a noise disorder. I think the correct term is mesomophenia, but for whatever reason, the tapping of the pencil, the chewing of the gum, those little noises, they have a way of tweaking me. In fact, if you talked to Tina's sisters and brother, they would say, "Oh my God, growing up, we couldn't even eat cereal with you in the room." Today, even if my family's enjoying a whole big hot bowl of soup, I need to go in the other room because of the slurping, and it bothers them. And I try to say, I'm leaving.
Your sister the gum. I'm glad I wasn't chewing any gum.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Thanks.
Well, good for you for being honest. Yeah. My wife and I constantly in the kitchen were like, lower the volume, please. Can you lower the volume? You're right next to me,
That's funny.
That's funny, man. Oh my God, your whole half of Long Island's watching. They'll be busting out. Guys, if you do know Pete and you're watching, why don't you list some more things? We only got to 3. Yeah, Something about Pete Ioppolo that people do not know about.
Well, a few people would know this just in conversation and sharing the pictures, but I'll share it with you since you took an active interest.
That was cool.
Prior to having children, I ended up building a wiffle ball stadium in my backyard. We're blessed. We have about 3 acres. It looks a lot like the bleachers would look in the corner. About 60-foot trees, 70-foot trees surround. It was a perfect spot where I said, this would be a great place for a stadium. So I was at the right distance and 100-foot for the fences. And I began construction. And it's nothing too elaborate, but it's a lot of fun. It's grown each of the last 20 years. I shared with you the biggest mistake was not taking the pen, the Sharpie, and having every individual player to ever play on it come and sign their name, because there are some people that have come once. There are some that come regularly. But it's always been a lot of fun. That and a GoPro camera, because I can make some great catches.
I would tell you to start it.
Yeah, correct.
Don't want you didn't do it, but start 2020. Boom, get the
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a cool thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Little Yankee Stadium. Nice.
These guys are out there a little bit playing. Yep.
Well, I'm sure that cost you more than $100, but how about the best purchase under $100 that has had a great impact on your life?
This is an interesting question. I think for me, honestly, it ended up being a pair of sneakers, because those sneakers, what they did was they helped to catapult me into running. And I was a biker, an avid mountain biker, street biker in college, hated running, played goalie because I hated running. And then all of a sudden decided I was going to start to run. And I remembered running in the middle school hallway the first time, running a half a mile and being very gassed. But then over just that persistence, that opportunity to reflect, it grew to a 16-mile was the most I've ever run. And I don't run very avidly now. I'm trying to do different things physically. But the sneakers were the best investment in my life.
What's your brand? What's your brand?
Asics.
Are you Asics?
Yeah.
Okay,
Nike's a little too firm in the sides. The Asics, right price point, right fit.
I'm a New Balance guy, but I would recommend again. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight is a great story. Yeah. For any runners out there, it's a great story. It's the story of how we started Nike. And
cool.
Cool story. But good for you.
Thanks.
Biggest difference from Long Island to Northeast Pennsylvania.
I would just think that people's general personality and pace. I think Long Island's going to force you a little bit to be more assertive if you're looking to get the things out of life that are available. Whereas here, I think people are a little bit more laid back in the pace. And so for me, I would never trade being raised where I was raised, but I also couldn't be any happier being in Pennsylvania, because it's that balance, that little bit of yin and yang.
You got the lake life up there.
That's it.
Yeah, well, in Paw Pack. Biggest difference between high schoolers and middle schoolers?
Just the general maturity levels and some of the subject matter that you would carry a conversation. I remembered going back to proms in the high school, and I love to dance, as I mentioned. So my wife is not a big dancer, but I got the privilege of taking my wife to about 10 proms. So not dancing, but wanting to dance, I felt comfortable dancing with age-leveled kids. The first time I go to the middle school, we have a dance. All of a sudden, I'm surrounded by a host of kids, and it wasn't as so much fun. It was more like, wait a second, this could be like ick. Don't touch me.
And lower your volume.
So it's just that some of those things.
And they don't dance as well as the high schoolers.
No.
I'm going to try to cue this music up here, Pete. We had technical difficulties. Hopefully we can get it going again. Pete, I believe that we all have a book in us, especially educators. What would be the title of your book?
It's interesting you say that, because I have a book in progress that's probably about 13 years in the making.
Okay.
It spawned from riding the mower in Yankee Corner and coming up with all these exotic chapters and writing them down on an envelope that I still look at. And I've written a couple of chapters. But the title of the book would be called Taking Off the Rose-Colored Glasses. And that would be a real live, up close and personal experience about public education, where it stands, what the experience has been, where I think it could be improved upon. Now, my sister Lorraine happens to be an exceptional artist. Back in the day, I thought that she would draw the cover. My daughter Anastasia is a pretty good artist.
Mm.
So I think, Lorraine, I'm going to have to slight you on the book cover.
Rainey, you're getting fired. You just got fired here on Education Leadership.
And I'm giving it to Anastasia.
Whoa. Well, cool. Take off the rose-colored vest.
And if we were going to do a different style out of the realm of education, I would do one about fraternity life called Breaking the Fraternal Oath. And that one I would market towards parents who didn't want their kids, who wanted to know what their kids were doing in school. And I would market it to kids so that they know what they shouldn't be doing in school.
Interesting. Well, I would challenge you to write the first one. I don't know about the second one, but you should do it. It's a great thing.
And I know you are an accomplished author, and I enjoyed your book very much.
You got a lot of energy, so go for it. Pete, short-term goal, 3 to 5 months.
I want to finish this school year on a very positive note. This has been one of my favorite years as a principal. One of the best things I did this year was attended a conference in Tannersville, and I took one thing back. That's the reason why I come to work. And I've introduced this to about 25 kids, maybe 6 staff, and I invite them in and I share why it is them that make me want to come to work. It's been a very powerful, very emotional at times experience. And, people are so thankful to me, and they're not recognizing that I'm the one that's benefiting the most. So I want to finish this year strongly. I want to pray for my daughter's success in softball in her sophomore year. My son is coming up finishing his last semester as a high school student, and he's got a lot of opportunity ahead of him. So I hope he finishes strong and playing baseball and having fun. And then my little one, Anastasia, is an exceptional track athlete, and I want to see where her jumps take her. And so a lot of really good things coming down the road.
A lot of good genes there. Long-term goal, 3 to 5 years.
Long-term goal for me is I'm thinking in the 5 to 7 year window, I'm going to start to think about pulling away from this maybe. So I do want to continue to uphold my responsibility, really just try to be the best principal and person that I can be for your child and your son coming through and any other kid that comes through. I want them to feel the passion. I want them to feel positive. I want them to know they're loved, and I want them all to have great success.
Wow. He got a lot of passion. This guy is the principal at Delaware Valley Middle School here in Milford, Pennsylvania. We're having some music issues, so we're not going to have our fading out music. But this Pete Ioppolo. Pete, you had mentioned the quote, Dr. Judy Smith about, I love it. If you make every decision based on the betterment of children, there's no way you can go wrong. Did you have any other favorites that you wanted to end this with here?
Yeah, William Blake. In my office, I have a picture of Michael Jordan. I referenced him as an influence in my life, as a role model, competitor. So I have the 7-foot wings poster. And the quote, I believe, is, "No man can soar too high if he soars with his own wings." And I know in today's world, in order to get to those extreme heights, you need a group of people to help catapult you and thrust you up. I'm always going to take a chance with my heart and my passion to get me where I need to be.
Very good. You did a great job, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
Pete Ioppolo, you want to reach out, Delaware Valley School District. It was great. Thank you to your whole family and Long Island that watched, Atlanta.
So thank you.
It was really good. And again, Pete, thanks for sharing and leading with your heart. Thanks for taking care of my kids there at school and doing good things at Delaware Valley. So
my pleasure.
No music. Sorry, you can't dance.
I can't dance. I think that was
So we're gonna tune out. I am at Andrew Murata 21 on Twitter. I'm going to talk to Pete about getting on Twitter here. But thank you so much for tuning in. Leave us a positive comment and or a question for Pete, and we'll be back to you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye-bye.